morning, this is Alan Moore and I'm at AdTech 2012 for the VIP interview. And this morning we're talking to Dr. Jeffrey Cole. Now I'm going to read this out to you because I can't remember it all. Who's the director of the Center for Digital Future at USC, the Annenberg School in the United States. Jeff, I know you were in the film industry. Perhaps you could tell me firstly a little bit about your background before you went into the academic field.
I was always attracted to television. Television's the most powerful medium ever invented. So I wanted to understand how it got made, and I spent some time working in television production for a couple of movie studios. And then I became very interested in the business of television and how television gets financed, how it gets put together. And the whole time I was interested in television, I was fascinated by technology and why some technologies win, why some technologies lose. The better technology does not always win. I was always trained to believe that Betamax was better than VHS and didn't win, but Sony didn't have licensing arrangements with movie studios. One of the reasons they went to buy a movie studio. So I've always been interested in how people adapted to technology. And while I was in television and at the same time getting a PhD in communication, I was taught that we lost this opportunity with television. That since we knew television was coming, since we knew radio listeners were going to love radio with pictures, what we should have done, but we didn't do, was we should have tracked people before they had television. And I became convinced that digital was going to be far more important than television. Television's mostly about leisure and entertainment, and the internet's transformed on a minute-by-minute basis how we communicate, how we work, how we play. Probably its greatest long-term impact will be how we learn. So believing we lost this opportunity with television and the digital was going to be even more important, we went out looking to see who was doing the work on digital that should have been done on television. And the surprising answer was nobody. So we decided to do it. And we started in the US, and we've gone back to the same people 12 years in a row and watched as they went from non-user to dial-up, from dial-up to broadband, which changed everything. Not because of the speed, but the always-on or the direct connection. We watch as 2% drop off the web each year and want to know who leaves and why, and more importantly, do they return? And if so, when and what brings them back? And then 12 years in, we track the never users. Who are these people who have never gone online and why? How do they do things offline the rest of us do online and increasingly pay more to do it? And a question we're asking about the never users, should we care? Should we be pushing them online, subsidizing them, cajoling them, or should we let them live their lives peaceably and happily disconnected? So that we knew we were going to track. We didn't know we were going to be tracking people moving from no mobile phone to a feature phone to a smartphone. That we didn't anticipate, to the point where we think smartphones are going to take over for most, smartphones and tablets are going to take over for most PCs. And we never would have anticipated user-generated content, social networking. And we started in 2000 and we're now in 35 countries around the world.
Jeffrey, what happens to all the research that you do? Is it open to everybody, or is it just restricted to the academia or just to corporations?
This information, first we brief governments. In America, we brief our federal government, Congress and the White House and our FCC. In Singapore, I've briefed the Lee Kuan Yew, the Minister Mentor. We've briefed the Prime Minister of Australia, the Presidents of Chile and Colombia. Next week, I'm at number 10 Downing Street with the Cameron government. And so we share this with governments who want to make policy decisions. We share it with companies who make digital strategy, who try to figure, companies like Ericsson, who build the global infrastructure for mobile. And we share it with parents and nonprofits and anybody who's interested. I should just say our goal is not to write articles for obscure academic journals that nobody reads. Our goal is to get information in the hands of people who can use it.
Jeff, at your presentation you spoke about Facebook and where you saw it going. Would you like to just expand on that now?
Well, first, we have to give enormous credit to Facebook. No one has ever gotten to 900 million people. We think it's going to cross 1 billion. We just heard that 1 out of every 4 minutes spent on the internet is spent on Facebook. So what Facebook has accomplished is extraordinary. But we really believe, we watched the rise and fall of GeoCities, the rise and fall of what was a very powerful social network for a little while, Friendster. When Rupert Murdoch bought MySpace, by that point we felt that a social network was like a nightclub. And when the uncool kids start showing up at the nightclub, or too many people are there, or worse, your parents walk in, you move on. So we predicted that with MySpace, and that did happen. And now with Facebook, we think the same thing is going to happen. This is not an indictment of Facebook. We think, first of all, when your heaviest reliance is on teenagers who can be somewhat fickle. But we think this is Facebook becomes a victim of its own success. We think, first of all, the fact that your mother and father there can be a problem for teenagers. We think it's going to collapse a little bit of its own weight. But as I pointed out in the talk this morning, first, we think, hey, Facebook's going to grow for another 4 or 5 years. I've said this for about 2 years, and some of the headlines, if you look up my name and Facebook on Google, it says, Cole says Facebook dead in 5 years. I didn't say, I said Facebook's going to grow for 5 years, and especially in the developing world. And we don't think it's ever going to go away. We think there's great utility to a network that reaches over 1 billion people. But I think it's going to end up as the place you go to talk to your mother and father and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters. I think your real relationships with people who are, not that your relationships with your family are not important, but your closest, most vital relationships, I think, move to other places. So we think Facebook is going to go through a natural evolution as well. And we don't think it'll ever be replaced by another billion-person community.
Have you got any clue of who might be coming up? Or?
Well, we saw Google Plus understood some of the weaknesses of Facebook, that you wanted to create circles of friends and didn't want to throw everybody together. And I think they catapulted very well, and they're about 70 million now. And I don't think they're going to go to 1 billion. I think they're going to go to 100 million, maybe 150 million. We've seen others, Pinterest for women and photos have really taken off. Instagram got so big so fast that Facebook, I think, was so nervous they went out and bought it. So I think we're going to see lots of little specialized communities with Facebook still in the background. And we're seeing really interesting effects of Facebook. For example, this is anecdotal. This came from the media this year in North America. But they're claiming now that at spring break, where people usually walk, or college students walk around with open alcohol bottles and girls yank their tops off, they claim that this year college students were extraordinarily well behaved on spring break because the message has gotten through. You do that stuff and there's 10 people over there with a cell phone and it's on Facebook in a matter of minutes, and the message that it can hurt you has gotten through. The Associated Press reported last month, this was chilling to me, that now in some job interviews, the interviewer, the company you're applying for the job for, is demanding your Facebook user ID and password. They don't like the fact that they're blocked. Now, I think that's tantamount to saying, if you want to work for me, I'd like the keys to your house, and I'd like to go in and snoop around. But this is showing the stakes, how important this social networking world has become, to where employers now want the keys to Facebook.
Jeffrey, thank you so much for talking to AdAsia.